Well, hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. If you are watching this on Wedding Chicks or over on Facebook, thank you so much for stopping by. Well, you guys have been asking for this video, so I'm so happy to finally have this put together for you. Today, we are going to talk about tipping, and only tipping. How much to tip, when to tip, who do you tip? Who do you not tip? It can be so confusing, especially when you're trying to work on a budget and you're like, gosh, do I have to pay this person extra? Is that something that I'm required to do? Are they expecting me to do that? Or is it optional and I pretend like I don't know that I have to tip you? Let me preface all this with saying, these are the standard in the United States. I know we've got a lot of viewers, which is totally blows my mind. I know I have viewers in different countries, so I'm not quite sure how tipping works for you guys or if this will apply to you as well. Let me know in the comments below if you guys do tips at weddings. I'm so fascinated by the differences in our different wedding cultures and what those things look like. So jump on down in the comments and let me know if tipping is something that you guys do. So without further ado, let's jump right on in. I put together a list of vendors that you are expected to tip, vendors that it is optional that you can tip, and vendors that do not expect a tip at all. Tipping, if it is expected, should be included in your contract or on your bill. If it is not expected, it is at your discretion. Sit in that for a second. Tipping is at your discretion. You are not required to tip. You are already paying for a service unless the invoice says that you have to tip. That being said, there are some vendors that expect a tip. And then there's some that are completely blown away by it. It just depends on who does what and how they do it and how long they're doing it. When you are passing out tips, well, no, let me back up for a second because you shouldn't be passing out tips at all. You should pass them off to someone, another responsible party to pass them out for you. Whether it's your mom, your dad, your maid of honor, or your wedding planner to pass out those tips for you. So have them already in hand in an envelope with the vendor written across the front of the envelope so whomever you pass it off to knows who it goes to. Make sure the cash is already counted, inside, and sealed, just ready to be delivered. So for the first category, vendors that expect a tip. The first one would be your bartender or your bartending service. They do expect a tip if they are not putting out a tip jar. If they're putting out a tip jar, you do not need to tip them in addition to that jar. You only need to tip them if they don't have a tip jar out or if it's already included in their invoice. Usually that amount is about 10% of the overall bill, and that is delivered at the end of the event. The second type of vendor that expects a tip would be the rental delivery service. Now this one's a little bit more unusual only because a lot of the times you're not there when they're dropping off stuff, but if you are, it's a good idea to tip them. And that amount can be anywhere from between $5 and $20 per delivery personnel, and that is expected upon time of delivery. The next vendor would be hair. Your hair artist definitely expects to be tipped. Usually that amount is anywhere from 15 to 20% of the overall service cost, and that is due upon completion of your hair. Upon completion of what? What else would they be completing? Same goes with makeup. For the most part, makeup artists do anticipate receiving a tip, and that can be, again, anywhere from 15 to 20% of the overall service charge. And that's due as soon as they're done with your face. Reception staff or catering company. This one is usually included on your contract, and you do not necessarily need to tip above and beyond what is listed on the contract. However, there are a few that don't include that. If you take a look at your contract and you don't see that there, then a tip is expected. About 15 to 20% of the overall total, and that is due at the end of the event. The next group of vendors is more of an optional category. You don't have to tip them, but you can if you want to. Some people do, some people don't, depending on their budget or the services rendered. Ceremony musicians, if you are having a string quartet or someone play guitar and someone sing, you can tip them. That'd be perfectly acceptable. That amount can be anywhere from $15 to $25 a person, and it's due at the end of the ceremony. Reception band, if you're having one of those, again, $15 to $25 a person and due at the end of the reception. If you are just having a DJ and you would like to tip them, again, this one's optional. It can be anywhere from $50 to $150, and it's due at the end of the event. The last optional vendor you can tip would be a valet service if you're going to have one. Oftentimes they'll receive a tip from your guests, so you don't necessarily need to tip on top of that, but just in case, if you'd like to, the rule of thumb for that one is $1 to $2 per car that they had driven. And that's obviously, again, due at the end of the event. The next few vendors don't expect a tip at all. Your photographer doesn't anticipate a tip at all. However, if you do choose to tip them based on the level of their service or, if you really feel like they went above and beyond for you on your wedding day, during your engagement photo shoot, whatever it happens to be, and you just want to bless them with a tip, that amount can be anywhere from $50 to $200, and that is due at the end of the event. Or if you'd like, you can wait until you get your photos back to make sure that they're worth the tip, you know? Videography is the same. They do not anticipate a tip. However, if you would like to tip them, it would be in the amount of $50 to $200, either at the end of the event or upon receiving your wedding video. Your florist totally doesn't anticipate a tip, not expecting one. Delivery driver, maybe, but not the florist themselves. If you do choose to do that, that would be in the amount of about 10% of your overall floral bill, and that would be due upon delivery. Your officiant, most likely, is definitely not anticipating a tip. However, if you choose to give them one, it could be in the amount of anywhere from $75 to about $150, and that would be due at the end of the ceremony. Or, in lieu of tipping the officiant themselves, you can make a donation to the church at which they work. And lastly, your planner. Planners do not expect tips at all. But if you choose to give your planner a tip, it should be somewhere in the amount of about 15% of your total planning bill. And that can either be at the end of the event or, you know, after your honeymoon. Ooh, that was a lot of numbers. I hope y'all wrote down notes, because that was a lot that I just threw at you real fast. But honestly, coming from a vendor who works a lot of weddings, especially from the crowd of people who does not anticipate getting a tip at the end of the event, 5-star reviews, guys. 5-star reviews are worth it every single time. Tell you what, save your $50. Go give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends and family to hire me when they get engaged. You know why? Because that grows my business. That honestly is priceless. I cannot put a dollar value on that. I had people give me houseplants. I'm not kidding. And I love them so much for it. People give me houseplants as a thank you for working their wedding. Can you tell that I'm maybe like a little not chill about my love of plants? Oh, but that was probably one of the better tips I think I've received, was a houseplant. Yep. I'll take that. So guys, if you are working on a budget, please don't feel pressured to tip people that are not on the expected portion of the list. Just leave them a good review and tell everyone about how wonderful their services were. And honestly, that is worth more than its weight in gold, which I'm not quite sure how much a 5-star review would weigh in gold. So I don't think that analogy works here. So that's all we have for today, folks. Thank you so much for stopping by. I want to do a little bit of a poll, actually, if you guys can humor me on this. If you can, jump down in the comments below. I want to hear, first of all, where you're from. Second of all, if you are planning a wedding of your own, and if so, when's the date? And if you're not planning a wedding, what brings you here? Let's get a conversation started in the comments below. I cannot wait to hear from you guys. As always, a huge shout out to my gal pals over at Wedding Chicks for hosting this video. Until next week, bye guys!